Today, new concerns over the legality of comments made by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Legal excerpts, warning the secretary may have violated international law by claiming enemies of the U.S. will get no mercy. Let's bring in Vice President of Political Strategy at Crooked Media and head of Vote Save America, Shaniqua McClendon, and former Virginia Representative Denver Riggleman. So, Denver, those comments from the Defense Secretary calling for no quarter, no mercy for enemies, I mean, they appear to violate international law. How does Hegseth's and President Trump's war rhetoric affect the view of America from both allies and enemies?
You know, Alex, that's a great question, and it suggests that maybe Pete Hegseth is off his rocker. It's not just international law, but you're talking about how you conduct yourself as a professional and somebody who leads the largest military in the world or the most effective military in the world. I also think it shows that our leadership is incompetent. It doesn't have the ability to push out a message based on what they're doing or to even tell the truth to the American public or to those in the international community. You know, it's hard with me being a former member of Congress, but also being a former member of the military. You know, I was an Air Force intelligence officer and served in multiple locations around the world in multiple operations. I would think that would make anybody who's a professional cringe, and also suggests that this National Command Authority not only lacks the experience, when you're looking at President Trump, who never served, but Hegseth, right, almost cosplaying as some kind of, bizarre, self-identified superhero, the polemical world. It's just ludicrous. And I think it shows that we're just an unserious country at this point.
You know, Shaniqua, Hegseth's department was renamed after World War II to the Defense Department instead of the Department of War. Do Americans want to be seen as the aggressors abroad, even if it's supposedly for peace?
No. Most Americans don't want us to be in war. I think, war should not be something we're talking about kind of in a political sense, but it is going to have an effect on Republicans as we look at the midterms. Donald Trump and specifically Pete Hegseth, he's treating this like a video game. And I think that's what's going to make it harder for them to defend this to the American people. This is not a war that this administration went to Congress to get approval for. It's not a war that they even try to justify with Americans generally. And so in the absence of that, that is not something that Americans want to see. But the way that they are behaving is, again, like it's a video game. And I just don't think it's what Americans want to see. We want to protect people. We want to protect the country, but not at the expense or not in favor or in support of people's egos.
You know, Denver, a new fundraising email from the Trump team this weekend includes a picture of the president in his white USA cap, saluting at the dignified transfer of the first U.S. soldiers killed in the war. MS now reached out to the White House for comment, but we haven't received a response. But what message does this send to MAGA and veterans? And by the way, this email offers donors attendance to private national security briefings by Trump himself. Denver, you were an intelligence officer. What is the president even allowed to tell these members? I mean, are you worried he could share sensitive classified intelligence? And how dangerous would that be? This is a loaded question, but bring it.
It is a loaded question, but I mean, they don't seem to have an issue with signal chats, right? Or protecting classified information anyway. When you talk about Pete Hegseth, and sorry if I'm going to get a little directed here. I mean, it's idiotic. I don't think the American language is expansive enough to say how vile, first of all, a fundraising email or digital ad that's put out with him at a dignified transfer using the deaths of my brothers and sisters in arms is something to raise money on. It's a vile. The words are very difficult for me, and it makes me angry on a level that's very difficult for me to contain when you talk about that. And as the president of the United States, it also shows that you're almost to a point where people think, you got this guy who just is out of his mind, right? I don't know if it's senility or not caring about the American public, right? But somebody who not only puts that out as a fundraising email, it's almost as if the American public, to the point is maybe we do have a 3-year-old with a loaded bazooka and a loaded diaper in charge of the United States military. It's out of control. And when you're talking about just the absolute insanity of thinking the American public can be on intelligence briefings. It's so bizarre and ridiculous. And again, it just makes us a laughing stock, ridiculous, but also scares the hell out of people because we have $1 trillion military that could do massive damage. And you have people with no maturity in charge doing things that are so vile, it's hard to put into words.
Shaniqua, do you get the sense what Denver is saying is being felt by people as they watch this?
Absolutely. There's no reason that I should have any path that I could get the intelligence that the president or the
Mhm.
Department of Defense has. But it seems that if I pay a certain price, I will be able to get that intelligence. And as we know, people who live in other countries can't donate to political campaigns. But once that information is out there, it's out there. And I have to believe, even despite my lack of experience in intelligence, that it will be hard to win a war that we shouldn't be in, but hard to win it when a bunch of people outside of our intelligence agencies know what the plans are. And, Donald Trump fundraised off of his own assassination. So I'm not surprised that he would do this. But corruption already puts us at risk as Americans. But the fact that the corruption is tied to our actual, directly to our security and the plans that are happening in other countries, what happens if that information gets into the hands of the Iranian military? It's just really unspeakable.
Well, I'm so glad that both of you have put some words to it. Thank you so much, Shaniqua in Denver.